Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. Hey, I want to give you a really important Facebook announcement before we go into today's episode. My free former group called Health Coach Nation was hacked. And what that means is somebody made themselves an admin of the group and removed me from the group. So I no longer have control over the group. I don't know what this person's intent is with the group. I don't know if they're going to start posting in there or messaging people. But my goal for you is to keep you as safe as I possibly can on Facebook. So my suggestion is that you leave the group and you join my new group that I just made called the Marketing Hub Group. We're going to rebuild stronger than ever in the Marketing Hub Group. And what I want to encourage you to do as well is to check out who the admin is in the group by going to the members list. And if you want to report him and block him, you can do that. So I'm very excited about the new group, and I want to also assure you that all my other platforms, social media, and website are secure, and my team has been implementing even more measures of security on all of our other assets. So I hope to see you in the new community, and thank you so much for being a part of my tribe for all these years. But with all these years, we can rebuild, reinvent, and it's never too late to start over. So I'm excited to see you in the new community, and thanks so much. Hey, I am live today with Patricia Stepler, and I am so excited to talk with her about productivity because I know there's so many of you here who struggle with, I don't have enough time to get it all done as a busy entrepreneur or as a mom and entrepreneur or as a full-time employee while you're trying to grow your side business. And so Patricia is the productivity queen. And I want everybody here, if you have questions, either watching the replay or the live, to put them in the chat and we can go through them. But Patricia, first, why don't you introduce yourself and how you got into what you do today?
All right. So thank you for having me on this broadcast. And yeah, my name's Patricia Stepler and I do mindset productivity. And one of the reasons that got me into this was, first of all, I did personal development my entire life. And then my son came along. He was my third child. And he manifested this full scholarship to college, which absolutely shouldn't have happened. And even though I was in personal development, you know, I was super happy that he had done that. And yet I was angry with myself because I hadn't done that. And it was like, there's something I'm missing. I knew there was something I was missing. So that led me to Bob Proctor, who helped me to understand what that missing piece was. In fact, I always called him my missing link. And so that got me into this business. But one thing I realized was that even if you follow the law of attraction and you build your self-image and you do all those things, if you're not the most productive person you can be, time gets away with you. And we can't manage our time. We all have 24 hours in a day. All we can do is manage us and manage our activities. And so I feel like a lot of business people end up doing trivial things instead of what they really need to do to be the most productive and to get as much accomplished in the short amount of time as they possibly can. And one thing one of the trainings I took, people that are super, super wealthy, they're not like busting their butts every day. They have, an idea of what they're doing. They delegate and they move on, and they're very relaxed people, most of them.
Yeah, totally. It's crazy to think about. And I actually was regarding Bob Proctor. He's amazing. I had a client once who was a Bob Proctor coach. And I love how you mentioned a lot of times it's managing ourselves and then our activities. It starts with you, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
when you're saying, what are some ways people get in their own way when it comes to managing themselves to be able to do the activities?
Most people, first of all, won't make a decision. And then if they do make a decision, okay, this is what I'm going to do, they won't draw that line in the sand that says, I am going to do this no matter what. And we're so easy. And I think it's just human nature. We'll make excuses for ourselves. Well, I'm probably not good enough to do that. Well, it probably wasn't meant for me. And so we'll come up with all these reasons as to why, instead of just becoming disciplined. And discipline, sometimes that has a really poor connotation to people, but discipline just simply means giving yourself an order and following it. And if we can just start out, even just taking baby steps, today I'm going to do this. I'm not going to bed tonight until this is finished. And just start making those little decisions step by step. That goes so far in not only getting things accomplished, but in becoming more confident in ourselves and building a better self-image. Because when you've accomplished something in a day, you feel much better about yourself. So even if it's just little baby steps, at first, you still feel like you're accomplishing something and moving forward. And that's what we really need to do, is to move forward. And then we also need to focus. And that's so hard. We're so distracted, the cell phone bings or my watch is just going off. And, you get those distractions. And every time you have a distraction like that, it can take you up to 23 minutes to get back focused. And, look at how much time you're losing if you allow those distractions to be part of you. And so we have to figure out, okay, how can we eliminate all those distractions and, really start focusing on what's important? And that will save you an enormous amount of time.
I love that. Okay. So many questions. Regarding what you said about discipline is really just honoring a commitment to yourself. I think everybody here, a lot of times we tend to say, well, I need to do all these things. And we make it so unrealistic for ourselves to follow a commitment to ourselves that we lose trust with ourselves. And so I like how you said, start with a baby step. And maybe a challenge everybody here listening could do this week is make one commitment to yourself a day. Whether it's one day you're going to say, I'm going to do a 10-minute walk today. Another day, I'm going to call that one person today, whatever it is, but make one. Do it and watch how your trust builds up with yourself. Now, most people will talk themselves out of doing that because they'll be like, that's not enough, or that's so stupid. It's just such a small thing. It's not going to make a big difference. But when you get to honor that with yourself and you can build that trust again, you can do a lot more things. And the other thing you said is distractions take up 23 minutes to get back to focus. That was so interesting. One follow-up question I have, because you said we got to get focused on what's important, is how do we know when we feel like we have so many competing tasks and desires? How do we decide what is important? What is the most important thing?
So I think that's one thing we have to really focus on first, is to set your goals. And sometimes people set so many goals. Sometimes they'll have like a goal for, every area of their life. You can't do that. That's too distracting. So you should only have 1, 2, 3 goals at the very most. And then what I want you to do is to look at that goal and what can you do this week to move towards that goal. Now, the other thing, I see this a lot, is people will set this goal, like by the end of December, I'm going to be earning X amount of money, or I'm going to lose X amount of weight. And then June comes, because we're almost there, I guess. June comes along and they panic because they haven't done anything to get there. And so then they, tend to push that off, or, oh, I can't do it. And they give up, which they shouldn't do either. My point is, find that goal and then find something you can do each week or each day to move that goal forward. Break it down into the smallest pieces. That's one of the things Bob, he always carried around a little calculator, and he'd figure out, how can I break this down to the smallest part? Here's my goal for the year. Okay, well, let's divide that by, 12 for the 12 months and 4 weeks. And, then what can I do this morning or this afternoon? Break things down to the smallest and just do a small piece, instead of looking at that huge goal for the end of the year, because it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, so true. And a really good book that helps you break things down is one called The 90-Day Year. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I really loved it.
Yeah.
So tell me about overwhelm. So when we get overwhelmed, what should we do to recenter ourselves?
I would meditate, because you got to first calm and focus on what it is that you want. So I feel one of the best things to do when you meditate is to not only meditate on the goal that you want, or the picture in your mind of what it is, but also just to release all those things that are bogging you down. And then a lot of times when we're overwhelmed, it's because we're trying to do too many things. What things are really not that important? And that's one of the things that will make you more productive. If this isn't going to move the mark towards your goal, do you really need to do it? Could somebody else do it instead? Maybe somebody else could do it better than you can. Or is it not important enough and just forget it? A lot of times people, and I used to be guilty of this myself, I'd make this long to-do list, and I always overestimated how many things I could get done in a day. And I think a lot of people are like that. We think we can do more than we actually can. And, so don't make a big to-do list. Find one or two things that you are going to accomplish and get those done. And I know I listened to a Darren Hardy talk one time, and he was talking about how little people actually work in a day. And it would surprise most people, because you think maybe you're putting in 8 or 10 or 12 hours, doing things, but how much of that is really productive, and how much of it is trivial things that really just aren't going to move you forward towards your goal.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that helped me put things in perspective on that topic of like, how much am I actually working, is I use an app called Toggle, Toggl, and I time myself for everything. And I'm actually able to see a report at the end of the week of how much time I spend on each different thing. And if I catch myself like I'm saying I'm doing one thing and my timer's going and I switch to something else, I have to stop the timer, because that means I'm not doing the thing I said I was doing, right? So it's really helped keep me in line, and also see like, wow, I am spending way too much time on XYZ. How can I make that process less crazy? So one of the things you said is like, we have trivial tasks, like we have things that we think it's kind of like busy work. Do you have any examples of maybe in your business, things that you thought were really important and then you reshifted to something more important and it led to, more maybe sales or clients or success in your business?
I would say one of the more trivial things I would get lost in is just kind of paperwork type things. And that really wasn't moving me forward. What I need to do, I needed to have outreach to people, and I needed to talk to people. Well, you can get caught up in doing all kinds of, even a program design. You can be spending all your time doing that, but if you have nobody in the program, it doesn't really matter. And, you can have the whole program finished, but nobody's buying it because nobody wants it. So, those are things that we think are important, things we think we need to do, but they're not really going to get you towards your goal. And, as far as some of that paperwork, you can do it along the way, but what's the most important thing? And I think that's the thing you have to look at. And what is it that you're really good at? And sometimes we try to learn things that we can give to somebody else. For instance, one time I decided to do this course on Facebook advertising. I had zero interest in Facebook advertising. And I spent a boatload of money with this guy who said he could teach me how to do Facebook advertising. You know what? It would have been so much more productive for me to take that money and give it to somebody who really knew what they were doing and could do it for me, because I didn't really have a desire to learn it. And my learning it was not fruitful as far as getting that money back. So, I think it's things like that. We don't have to know everything. Sometimes, what we don't really care about, somebody else loves doing. And sometimes that's hard for us to understand. The very thing that you don't like, somebody else loves, and it's their passion. I think of that even with my son. He's really into data analysis. And I'm thinking, I don't think I'd really enjoy the job he has, but he loves it because it's just the way his brain's wired. And I feel like we're all made differently. And thank goodness for that, that we're not all clones of each other, so that people do have different interests and, different things people like to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I kind of went a similar path to you, but I went the opposite with the Facebook ads thing. I hired somebody to do my Facebook ads, and then I realized I needed to make that more productive and to make us able to communicate better. I had to learn some stuff about Facebook ads. So same thing. I bought a course. Yeah. Now I'm going through it, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to learn this. But at the same time, I think it's interesting to just bring up that a lot of times we get so caught up in, I got to do this, I'm the only one. And the truth is, there's so many people, so many resources, so many things that you can get help with. And you just have to ask the right questions, which is something that you keep sharing in what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Is like, you're asking, like, is there a better way to do this? Could I ask somebody for help? So what are some of your favorite maybe productivity hacks that you've incorporated into your day or into your week that just helps you get more done and stay focused and all that kind of stuff?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, I tend to turn my phone off, which is good and bad sometimes when people are trying to get a hold of me, but I just try to get that out of my way, so I'm not seeing that. And emails that used to fly across my screen, got rid of them. So any of those little distractions give you the opportunity to really focus. The other thing I like to do is I schedule what I'm going to do the night before. And generally on the weekend, like Friday night or Saturday or Sunday, sometime, at the end of the week before Monday starts, I try to look at what are the things I think are most important to get done this next week in order to accomplish my goal. And then I try to schedule them. And I like to use blocks of time. I was so resistant to blocking my schedule for so long because I'm like, but I have to be available for anybody that wants to call me. Well, you know what? No, my time's important too. So I resisted that. And then once I was able to start blocking, and I'll generally block an hour or an hour and a half so that I can just concentrate on an idea. And then sometimes, like if I really want to get creative, sometimes I'll spend an entire day. And I think that's, I think sometimes people don't realize that when they're thinking and planning, how important that is to accomplishing their goals. And sometimes you need to take a day, maybe a day a month, where you are just not doing any of the normal things that you would do, but you're just thinking and planning and getting some ideas to come, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to step outside of the box that you're in and come up with something new, is to really think.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. We need thinking time and digestion time as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So what about when it comes to maybe saying no? I know this is a big thing that people struggle with, saying no to things that maybe aren't in alignment right now with our goals, or things we feel like we should do, but we got a lot going on. How do you manage saying no and people pleasing and all that?
Yeah, that is a tough one. I feel like I don't have as much of that now that my kids are grown, I don't have to say no to as many outside things, but there are times you just have to say, no, I can't do this. My plate's full and it's not in alignment with what you want. And sometimes we feel like we're disappointing others. And I think we have to decide, who are we here to live for? Are we here to build the life we want, or to build somebody else's life? And, yeah. That sometimes is a tough call, but, and here's another great idea. If you have a VA, get them to say no for you. Yeah. And find a way to, I'm sorry, they're really busy right now. They can't, do this or other thing, and get them to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great tip. Yep, absolutely. What are some things you're saying yes to more in your business these days and in your life?
I think for me is saying, well, yes to travel, because that's what I always wanted to do. And so if I'm not able to spend time with my family and travel, then what am I doing this for? So that's important to me. And the other thing is saying yes to my own discipline, and saying, this is what I'm going to get done, and saying yes to me.
I love
And
it.
I think we have to say yes to ourselves because, I think for women, especially if you're a mother, for me, it was like, I did so much for my kids, and, I felt that was important, and it was important to help them to grow to be the very best that they could be. And now it's like, it's my time. So it's time to say yes to some of the things I want to do.
I love that. Amazing. So everybody here, question to ask yourself is, how can you say yes to you more? And what does that look like in your week or in your life? And how can everybody get in touch with you, Patricia, online or in other places?
Yeah, they can. So I'm on Facebook. You'll find it at Patty Rohrbeck Stepler on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn at Patricia Stepler. You can reach me at patricia@yourdreampower.com and, reach out to me that way.
Awesome. Your dream power. Tell us, what does that mean? Tell us more.
So your dream power is, you have inside of you the ability to turn your dream into reality. And you have all the powers. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that you're not given an idea of something that becomes a dream without being given the tools and the ability to accomplish it. It's just a matter of finding that. And sometimes we don't believe it because maybe that goal feels like it's so beyond who we are. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that, that people are joking around with you when you get that idea. I don't believe God's making a joke there. He's not teasing you. He's saying, this is a really good idea, and you have every ability inside of you to accomplish it. So that's what your dream power is all about.
Amazing. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.